Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Thank you for being here as always. I want to talk about, well, you've read the title, I want to talk about how I wrote a full-length novel in just 12 weeks. That was Relic's Dawn, around about 90,000 words. 12 weeks sounds improbable, sounds impossible, but I promise I did it. It's not something I recommend, but I want to sort of take you through sort of my journey on writing that book. And if anything I say can help you on your journey, then I've achieved my goal for this video. I think it's important for me to throw out a disclaimer before I begin. When I was writing Relic's Dawn, it became a bit of an unhealthy obsession for me. It became very much a hyper-focus and something I really just didn't want to put down. Every single waking moment of every single day while I was writing it for those 12 weeks, all I could think about was Relic's Dawn. I was thinking about characters, plot points, the enemy movements, all kinds of things. And yeah, I mean, it worked for me, and that's not to, like, when I say it was an unhealthy obsession, I can admit that it wasn't unhealthy for me because it worked and it didn't really get in the way of anything in my life. I had plenty of free time at that time, so I could spend all of that free time basically writing the book. But obviously, that's not to say that it would work for everyone. So I just wanted to throw this disclaimer out there and say that. Yeah, I became obsessed. That's pretty much how I was able to write 90,000 words with edits in 12 weeks. It's not something I'm probably ever going to be able to do again. If I do, then I think that's going to be a very rare occurrence. I'm currently writing the sequel to Relic's Dawn, and I'm definitely going to get it done in 12 weeks. Yeah, it was one of those sort of lightning in the bottle moments. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. I don't want you thinking that, JJ Benham threw together a book in 12 weeks. So can I. You can, and I'm not trying to take that away from you. You probably can. I just wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't say it's the healthiest way of approaching things. If there's no rush, don't rush. But having said that, how did I begin? Well, right at the back, this was February this year. I was listening to an awful lot of audiobooks, particularly a lot of sci-fi. So things like I can't even remember things like Halo. I was listening to a lot of the Halo books, for example. Halo is a big inspiration for Relic's Dawn. There is a lot of inspiration there. So, for example, the super soldiers. Obviously, there's the Spartan super soldiers in Halo. In Relic's Dawn, we have Titan super soldiers. They are slightly different. I wanted to differentiate them as much as possible. Super soldiers are super soldiers. Everyone's going to draw comparisons. But I did want to differentiate them enough. And there are other parallels that you could draw, but that's kind of where it ends. And I've sort of taken inspiration from other sci-fis, like Dune, for example. That's where it started, really. It came as a sort of, what would I do? I'd listen to a scene or a set piece in the book, and I think, wow, what would I do? How would a character that I created, or how would I react in that situation? And that's basically where it started. It basically was a mental exercise for me while I was essentially bored, while I had plenty of free time. I was thinking, how would I approach this? How would I change that? Where would I take the story? How would the character or how would I react to that situation? And it started from there. I basically came up with the idea of Relic as a character. Really liked the idea of him being a super soldier, in cool sci-fi armor. And obviously not too dissimilar to the Mjolnir armor. It is different, but not too dissimilar. But that's where the idea came from. I'm not ashamed to admit it. That is where the idea came from. And essentially that's how I started. It was how would I do it, and then it became a process of starting to think about it while I wasn't listening to the books, and that's the point. That's the point in which I thought, you know what, I think I could write something about this. And I only actually set out to write a short story. I was writing a lot of D&D stuff at the time, so I was running a campaign, writing loads of world building, story, that kind of thing, loads of different characters for the players to interact with, and I think it was, again, lightning in a bottle, the perfect moment in time where the two sort of interests, merged. And 12 weeks later, I had a fully finished 90,000 full-length novel, which is insane even now, just saying that. But yeah, that's pretty much how I started. Wild. Absolutely wild. So that's how I started. And then my process for actually writing Relic's Dawn evolved over time, really. I'd written or attempted to write books in the past, One in particular stands out as I got like three-quarters of the way through it. It was basically an epistolary novel, a sort of Woodwarddy-esque zombie survivor, sort of recounting their um, survival tales in an interview format. And I never finished that. I sort of lost the steam and didn't really want to finish it. I lost the passion, the drive, the motivation. As many of you, as many of you probably understand, it sucks. But yeah, and then I never really bothered trying to write or continue to write it or write another book since then. And that was, I want to say that was about 2 years ago now. That was the first proper attempt at me writing. I've done short stories before, plenty of short stories. Obviously, I've written loads of D&D stuff. That was the first attempt at a book, though, an actual novel, and then Relic's Dawn came along as the second attempt, and yeah, it's wild to me still that my second proper attempt at writing a novel, I finished it and then published it. It's crazy. But I want you to take that. That's not a brag. That's not in any way a brag. I don't think there's anything to brag about. That's me telling you that you can do it. If you have an idea for a book, I did it, second attempt. You can do it first attempt. There's nothing stopping you. I want you, if you have an idea, if you've started writing a novel, I want you to do it for yourself. Do it for yourself. If not for yourself, for me. Do it for me. I want you to finish that book. Even if you never publish it, get it to a point where you're satisfied with it. Get it to a point where you think, that's done. If down the line in the future I could publish that, I can. If I want to, I can. And tell me about it. I want to know about your books. I want to know about your ideas in the comments. Message me on Instagram, whatever you want to do. I absolutely have fallen in love with storytelling, and I want as many people to get involved as possible. I absolutely love talking about this sort of stuff with people. That's why I've made a YouTube channel. Anyway, I'm ranting, not ranting. I'm getting off track. I'm sort of rambling. That's what I meant to say. But yeah, my process evolved. So the process that I had with the zombie novel, the first one, a couple of years ago, was I basically just attacked it. There was not really any thought behind it. I ended up writing a load and then having to come up with a sort of timeline of events, and then creating a timeline of events and going back and changing things, and then deciding that I didn't like the timeline and going changing the timeline again, and then going back and changing the things again. I did that about 3 or 4 times, and I think that's what killed my motivation for it. So approaching Relic's Dawn, I did attack this as well, but there was a little bit more thought involved. So what I ended up doing was, because my favourite thing in the world is world building. I absolutely love world building. I love reading about world building. I love lore, extended lore, backstories, history of worlds. Tolkien, you're all familiar with Tolkien, is an absolute gold mine in terms of world building and lore and things like that. And he's not the only one. There are hundreds of authors that do excellent world building, and but obviously Tolkien's the one that comes to mind because he was kind of the first to really do it. I don't want to get shot for saying that. There are others, obviously, but yeah, I think he was the first, and he's the most well known, definitely, or at least to me. But yeah, absolutely love world building. That's the one thing that I really, really love about being a DM in D&D. So that's where I started. I actually built the character Relic off those thought sort of exercises I mentioned, and then I built a world for him to fit into. And it actually started in the sort of very close, the near future, in a war, and then I basically took it from there. I wanted it to be more sci-fi, so I liked what I had, but wanted it to be more sci-fi. So I basically just combined the two and created a sort of history for the world, for the world and for the characters. And that's where I started. And then in terms of actually, plotting the narrative, this is where I really did attack it. I was very much a pantser. I just started prologue, which was in the near future, chapter 1, which was more in the future. Don't want to give any spoilers away. But yeah, I just went for it, and I had a loose idea of where I wanted the narrative to go and who the characters were and why they were on the path that they were. And then once I'd gotten into about chapter 11, 12, I'd started to basically finish a chapter and then go, okay, this has happened so far. This is where the characters are right now as of the end of this chapter. These are the next 3, 4, 5 chapters. And I very, very loosely outline them. And when I say loosely outline them, I do mean like with a sentence or two. I never stuck with it, but it gave me an idea. And if obviously I had a break for a few days and then came back to it, which never happened, I was doing it pretty much every day. But I had, obviously, I went to sleep, for example, like, I ate and I spent time with my family. Um, so when I came back, I could read those sentences and think, okay, jogs my memory. Let's carry on. So I became a bit of a hybrid pantser plotter, which has actually worked very, very well with me. For me, that's the sort of, I'll add more detail now, but that's the sort of the take that I use right now when I'm writing. It's the take I'm using right now when I'm writing the sequel, and it's helping me a lot. Actually, I don't tend to stick to my plan. So if I outline 5 chapters, I never stick to it. Or it's very rare that I stick to it. Or I'll say I like this chapter, but I'll move it further on in the story, or I'll bring one forward, so on and so forth. But yeah, massively helpful, and I definitely recommend it. Yeah, that's the process. One thing that I want to highlight, because I did it and I wouldn't recommend it, is don't get too carried away. I got very, very excited when I got to about chapter 19-20. I was very close to the ending. I'd actually started thinking about how the book was going to end. I got carried away. I was thinking, I need to get an editor, I need to get the cover work done, and so I did. I basically secured an editor on Fiverr, and I went and basically put down a submission on 99 Designs, which I definitely recommend. It's quite expensive, but if you can afford it, it's very, very good, because basically you can get a load of different designers. You basically put a brief up, and then you get loads of designers who submit their designs, and you can basically work with them all to continuously iterate and improve, and then you pick a winner at the end. It's really, really good. But that's what I did. I hadn't even finished the book yet, and I was on 99 Designs. I'd thrown a brief together, and basically had people working on the cover art for a book that wasn't even finished. And like I said, it's not cheap. So I definitely wouldn't recommend that. I think at the time I was just so adamant and so motivated that I was going to finish the book and get it published. Thankfully I did. That obviously it made sense to me at the time, but I will never do that again. The cover art and things like that is going to be the last thing, the last step, which is, that's common sense. Just wanted to throw that out there as a warning. Don't get too carried away. I feel like you need healthy restraint. Um, you know, Sometimes you need a reality check, and I never got one. So no, it was good. And then yeah, that was pretty much it. Like, I mean, I can go into more detail with the actual, getting onto KDP, getting that cover work, getting an editor, what to look for with the editor, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That is pretty much how, very loosely, how I wrote Relic's Dawn in 12 weeks. Yeah, it was crazy. But I don't know if this video was helpful. Don't know if this video was interesting. Please go ahead and tell me in the comments. I'm not really used to doing this sort of content. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me. I've realised I've just talked at you and rambled for God knows how long now, probably over 10 minutes. But no, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking through, and I'll catch you in the next video.